Okay, guys, so today I'm joined by a person that I'm very inspired by. So I'm currently sort of at the sub-elite level, 220 marathoner myself. So I often look at people that are better than me, and I try and sort of like see what they're doing, try and replicate their training sometimes, and take little bits and pieces of what I can learn from them. And today I'm joined by Irish Olympian sub 210 marathon runner, Stephen Scullion. What an absolute legend. He just woke up. He's in America at the moment and jumped in a call with me. So thanks so much for joining me today, Stephen.
Yeah, I think two things. One, 220 is pretty fast. I wouldn't call that sub-elite. I'd say that's really good. And I do the exact same. I'm always looking at what other people are doing too to try to get better. And so, yeah, not a bad thing. I think that's always a good piece of advice for everybody. It's good to look at people above you and beside you and below you. And if you can learn things, take it and yeah, add it to your own training if it suits.
For sure. Thanks. I know I'm sort of caught into that category. Like I feel like a social runner trying to improve every day. And obviously elite, I mean, there's no exact definition of elite, probably somewhere between sub to 14, 13 marathon. I would guess you'd probably argue maybe a bit quicker. But yeah, I'm sort of, in the gray area, just trying to improve. But in any case, I've got a couple of questions for you. So the
Brilliant.
first of which is I'm based in London and, I've got a lot of family commitments, work commitments here in London, growing a new coaching business and club. So I sort of don't have the luxury of, going to altitude for long periods of time. I know obviously, it's a big sacrifice and for you as well, going to altitude. But if I'm not prepared to go to altitude for, weeks at a time or extended periods of time, and I'm, I don't do sort of things like lactate testing within my sessions. I see you doing a lot of that. You keep it very disciplined, very, more scientific, and the results show for themselves. You're an Olympian. If I'm not doing any of that sort of stuff and, just doing my weekly routine here in London, what do you think would be the best way for me to improve, to level up in order to, get closer to sort of the likes of you and just to try and shave off a few more minutes?
Yeah, I think there's probably like two questions within that. So the first would be, if you don't have time to get the altitude, like, is there anything else you can do, or is that what you have to do? When I trained for Rotterdam, like, I didn't go to altitude at all. I just decided for 4 months that I used to sit at home and I'd be planning and I'd spend all this time on the laptop. Where should I go? How could I make my situation better? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how about you just go do your double run? And then when you come back from your second run, like, how about you do the gym stuff that that you're supposed to do? And it was like, sometimes we spend all this time thinking that we can improve our situation and make it better. And it's like, we're actually skipping the things that we could have just done at home. And so it's like, well, yeah, I can't go to altitude, but like, hey, I could like get an extra massage this week, which would allow like one extra run this week. And like that extra run might trump being at altitude. The other thing on altitude is you can do a sauna, like 1 or 2 saunas a week. And that, I think if you do a sauna, I know, if you do a sauna for 20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, that increases blood plasma. And so altitude's increase in hemoglobin mass, which is super important, but increased blood plasma is also beneficial, which is why sometimes when people go on holiday or they train in the heat or they're getting heat exposure, they find when they come back, they're that little bit fitter. And so you can still, from a physiological perspective, manipulate your blood by doing the sauna stuff or the heat exposure. But I also just think a lot of people are thinking the grass is greener. And it wouldn't matter if you started going to altitude, you'd start to go to altitude. And then 2 weeks later, a month later, 3 months later, you'd be like, oh, maybe that altitude place is better. Hey, maybe I should go to Kenya because that's where everybody else goes. And sometimes we're just not appreciating sometimes how good the setup we currently have, how it keeps us in a good life balance and things like this. And so I had to learn almost in that Rotterdam buildup. I could have gone to altitude, but I just chose, no, like, stay where you are, but just get the training done. Go, don't miss the double runs, don't miss the gym stuff, don't miss the yoga stuff. Like, get it done and do it well. The second answer would be on the lactate testing and stuff. Like, oh, lactate's really starting to upset me a little bit, because not that like this is one of the gold standards, but the more I listen to, like, there's I think his name's Gustav Eden and Christian Blumenfeld, and their coach, I think his name's Alexander Blue, Boo, Olav Alexander Boo. He's a beast. This guy's a genius. And every time I listen to this guy, like, he talks about lactates and he talks about using it and how they use it, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I genuinely thought lactate was like the be all and end all, like it did not lie. And then the more I listen to this guy, I'm like, well, wow, like just like everything in life, if you're dehydrated, if you've had certain nutrition, if like your blood's in a strange way, if you're just at altitude. And then I'm like, well, now it just pisses me off because maybe it's not the gold standard, because like actually it's so interchangeable based on hydration at altitude is really hard to stick to. And so my lactate could be different because I'm dehydrated. And oh man, like, so what I would say, and you know, I've been trying to do a little bit of this on my YouTube, or, you know, even in like the running school thing that I started, I'm trying to get people to learn there's other ways to track fitness. So lactate testing for me is just a means to see if things are moving forward, and if they are, great, what worked. And that's so important, not just what am I not doing to get the improvements I want. Wow, that was a big jump in 10 days. What did I do that maybe provoked that jump in training? And then zoning in on that, being like, whoa, that really worked. So what you can do at home is you can go to a track. You can take example, like you're pretty dialed in, you know that 220 is the goal. And so 220, you can do pretty much like 5 or 6 times 2K on a track. And if you're going to go at 220 pace, so that's 640 for 2K, well, then you track back like either probably like 10 seconds per 2K. So you would start at like probably like 720, 710, 7 minutes, but so that you're getting to your 640 around about your 3rd or 4th rep. And so this was the like Stefano Baldini, who goes on to win the Olympics. This was his test. And he used to go 620, 615, 610, 605, 6 minutes, 555, 550. And he would take lactate, and he would take heart rate, and he would take rate of perceived effort. And they could literally track and tell what he was going to run for a marathon based on that 5 or 6 times 2K. And so that's a way that every like 4 or 5 weeks, you can go to the track, you can do, it's still a good session. Anytime you're doing 5 or 6 times 2K, that's a good session. And all you're doing is taking probably like 45 seconds to a minute recovery, writing down what was your rate of perceived exertion, RPE, and then also writing down what was your sort of max heart rate in that rep, your average heart rate in that rep, and you track that over time. And it's very likely that if heart rate's coming down and rate of perceived exertion's coming down, what you're doing is working. You won't have the lactate value, but you have everything else. It's still a very good metric. And it's just helping you learn, is what I'm doing working? Is it not working? How can I move this forward? And anybody can do that. You don't need a track. You could get a wheel. You could go measure, 2K. The reason they use a track is because every 100 meters, you can check that you're basically not effing up the pace. That's all it's used for. But as long as you track this in the same place, and I would definitely recommend a wheel rather than like assuming where things are at, then it's not really a fair test. So I don't think you need lactate. I think it's a really useful value, but it's expensive. And let me tell you, lactate makes a mess of a lot of sessions. Sometimes I end up taking 2 minutes recovery because I'm messing around with the lactometer, and I like the battery's dead, or the strip won't go in, and it's messy. But yeah, it's really, most people are just using it to make sure they're training at the right intensity, and then B, to track progression. Heart rate works pretty good. Just know that heart rate has a little bit of a range because of stress and nutrition and again, dehydration, but lactate apparently has the same sort of range. And so, yeah, I would just say, like, if you're not going to use a lactometer, then just slow the likes of the marathon stuff down a little bit, slow the threshold stuff down. Don't be afraid if you're doing 3 times 2 mile to do the first one a lot slower, just to make sure that you're keeping that lactate that little bit lower.
Cool. Thanks so much. So much goodness to take from there. I know, obviously, being, coach myself, working with a lot of athletes, is that there's so much data out there, that it can become sort of like overbearing and too technical sometimes. And we're always monitoring heart rate now, glucose level, in your case, lactate. And there's just so many different things you can measure. A big thing that, is a sign but throws a lot of people off is with the Garmin watch, telling you whether you're productive, unproductive, what your VO2 max is, all this stuff. And I often get a message saying, I'm feeling fitter than ever. My watch is telling me strained. Should I listen to my watch? This. And do you know what? All this stuff you got to take with a pinch of salt. And you know what I find that is when you are moving forward, it is nice to know that the numbers are moving forward with you, but it's not the be all and end all. And I think if we look at, the best in the world, the sort of Kenyans and Ethiopians, if you look at the way they train, it's super, super basic. And ultimately there's no massive tricks. It's nice to just know that stuff's sort of in line. So thanks for that. And yeah, I know a lot of runners actually, have been planning to go to altitude, end up going and coming back with sort of altitude sickness, coming back no fitter than they were before. So like you said, I think it can be a great training tool, but the grass isn't always greener. Yeah. And utilizing my time here is probably the best answer for that. So thanks for that.
And altitude, like a quick, not to drag that question out, but like altitude takes time. Yeah, so you have to learn how to train at altitude, how your body adapts to altitude, like what not to do at altitude. But not only that, even if someone could tell you everything what not to do, even if someone could tell you the exact training that would work for your body at altitude, the benefits are tiny. Like they're tiny. It's not like you're going to go from a 3-hour marathon runner to 2:45. You might just run 2:57 instead of 2:58:10. And that's if you do it exactly right. It's minuscule. And so people come back from altitude, they drop down to sea level, they go for a run and they're like, wait, what? Where's the fitness? What? Like what's going on? And it's like, so for most people, it's not going to make enough difference that it's actually worth it. We're talking the best in the world using it so that they're 0.1 of a second quicker over 1500, because that might help them win a medal at the Olympics. If you're a rec runner or a sub-elite runner and you're just looking to be better, you literally might miss your family when you're away. That person that you go see massage for on a Tuesday, that you vent all your problems, well, you'll probably miss them too. You could come back worse because you've just missed everything that you're doing. And most of the benefits from altitude are coming over time. So 4 months a year for 3 to 5 years. And then when you come back, you're like, wow, that was a good investment over 3 to 5 years, not necessarily one camp. Yeah. Most people that benefit from one camp, it's because perhaps they get away from little bits of life stress, work, they take time off work. But if you took time off work and trained at home where you are, you'd probably get better. It's simple.
Sure. Okay, cool. And one of the most common questions I get on altitude is, what is the minimum amount of time you would say to gain that actual benefit?
Oh man, everything's so controversial. It's supposed to be like 21, 22 days, but then I emailed back and forth. People haven't read it already. There's a really good Marius Bakken article on threshold training and this sort of stuff. It was released when the Inga Britsons were doing a lot of threshold stuff, and supposedly their dad had a call with this Marius Bakken, and then there was this kind of, oh, I didn't call him, and then Marius wrote this article that was like, I think you did, and it was this cool article. It was really fun, and basically I emailed back and forth with him, and he talked about doing 8-day camps, 10-day camps, and he just maximized. We just talked about like that sort of like lactate testing and stuff. And he told me that he used to go for sometimes 7 days, sometimes up to 10 days. And he would basically just do threshold training every other day. So threshold training, easy training, threshold training, easy training. And he would just see it as a real kind of, I'm going to use the word intense, but that's not correct. But it's a real, it's a block of 7 to 10 days of just maximizing a lot of really good training is probably what I would say, because you're not acclimated to the altitude, as it's called, you have to run a lot slower. And so he would run a lot slower, but he would be hitting the right effort level every day. And he would be getting so much volume done at really good effort, which was giving his body a lot of sort of fitness improvements. So, right around thresholds. But he was using the lactate test. And so he might have ran, like instead of running a 3-minute K at sea level, he might have had to run 3:20 because he's not acclimated. It's literally day one. But he told me that there's this kind of like, when you go to altitude, you're supposed to take the first 5 to 7 days pretty easy. That's why they say 21 days, because it gives you time to take a bit of time easy, still get some training done, and get your hemoglobin upwards. 21 days, that's what it takes. But he said he would gain more out of, not more, as much sometimes, by just doing 7 or 8 days, but every other day doing threshold sessions. And he would do double threshold sessions every other day for 8 days or 10 days, whatever way it worked out, with the next race in mind. The problem with altitude is if you're going to do 3 weeks and it's going to bring your blood up a little bit, but you're going to take 4 to 5 days easy on the front end, what's better at the end of a 3-week period? Is it better that you've just taken 4 to 5 days easy? Because think about it, you've left London, you've flown the altitude, you're in Font Remote, travel takes something out of you, your dehydration might not be in a good place, you're eating in places that you don't normally eat in. You've also just missed your Tuesday hard session with the club and your Friday hard session with the club. So by the time you get to Saturday, you're less fit than you would have been had you left London. Now, in those next 2 weeks, is it possible that you can make up for that lost ground because your hemoglobin will go up a little bit? Maybe, but it's not a guarantee. And that's why even 3 weeks, I literally would get to Saturday and be like, I'm kind of pissed off because I've now missed my Tuesday session. I've missed my Friday session. And now we're on Saturday and I'm going to do like I'm going to do like 8 times 1 minute on, 1 minute off to break myself into the altitude. And I'd be like, at home, I'd have done 2 times 2 mile tempo and 10 by minute hills. I'd have been panting at the top of Richmond Hill, like completely out of breath, dying. And so I'd get to the end of the first week at altitude and be like, I think I've lost fitness. I think if I stayed where I was, I'd have been fitter at this point. And then, of course, you've got 2 weeks where hopefully you can make up for it. And hopefully that little bit of extra hemoglobin or whatever will make a bit of a difference, but it's a complicated area. How long, or should I go, should I not go? I'm not slating altitude by any means, but just understand there's a lot of things, there's a lot of factors that weigh up.
Yeah. Thanks for putting it to perspective. And yeah, like we said, the grass isn't always greener. I think a lot of people think to level up, altitude is the answer, and it's not always the answer. But I think, you know what, your theory on sort of the 8-day threshold work, easy day work, threshold work, easy day work would work well for a lot of the city goers that, you know, only have X amount of leave per year.
Yeah.
You know, as a runner, you tend to listen to what you want to listen to. So I think you'll be like, let me jump onto that theory and go for 8 days, give it a shot and see what happens. So maybe
just tread very carefully. Sorry to interrupt you. If people are thinking of doing that, be very slow. So like if you have a way to track, maybe it's heart rate, definitely heart rate. But like if I flew the altitude and I tried to do a threshold session that next day, I mean, instead of running 5-minute miles, I might have to run 5:30 for like a 1K rep or a 2K rep. You have to slow that right down, because if you go to altitude and you do what you think is threshold every other day and it's not threshold, it's actually like 10K or 5K effort, you're going to make a mess of your entire build-up. You'll be knackered by the end of that week and you won't get those benefits. So the key is really slowing down. And that's even better. You're getting more benefit at a slower pace. Slower pace beats the body up less, more fitness benefit. It's genius.
Cool. So you heard it from Stephen, guys, at least around almost 30 seconds per mile difference for when you get there. I think, you know what, for my next marathon build, which is going to be Berlin, I might come spend a few days with you if you don't mind me joining. Okay, cool. So on to the next question. I know I see that you often use cold as a form of recovery. There's a lot of research going into that recently. I know you touched based earlier on the benefits of sort of 20 to 30 minutes in a sauna, especially, you know, if you don't have the benefits of going to altitude. But as far as cold goes, and you jumping into sort of like, you know, an ice cold river afterwards, really to sort of like, you know, freeze the muscles, and stop the lactate build in them to help produce stiffness the next day, stuff like that. Would you say it's very beneficial? And would you say for someone that lives in London, is it worth me coming back from, you know, a track or an interval session, running a cold bath, you know, going to the shops, getting ice, putting ice in? Do you think just a cold bath is good enough? Or do you think actually you're better off, you know, just having a protein smoothie and spending a bit more time foam rolling? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so there is heaps and heaps of benefits for cold, and I don't need to go into like every benefit. I can tell you why I do it. And so sure, there's a recovery benefit, absolutely. Every evening I do 20 to 25 minutes in it's kind of like a portable infrared sauna. And then I go straight from the infrared sauna into like a cold shower. And at the minute, the cold shower has been like freezing cold, like it's super, super cold. But I do it for, I'm going to say 2 reasons. I do it because it's super refreshing. Maybe there's a couple of reasons. It's super refreshing. It just feels good. And that's exciting. And then I do it because I've been talking to my little brother a little bit more. So I'm just trying to be a better, bigger brother, you could say. And I'm trying to encourage my little brother to do things that make him a bit more uncomfortable. And so we're all living in this world where we're all super comfortable. We all love sitting at home. We like to sit in. You get home from your training session. It's a lot easier to have a protein shake, sit on the couch, put on Netflix. That's easy, right? And so when it gets tough in the marathon, are you going to like double down and grind a bit? When I ran 209, I was grinding from like mile 11. I was hustling from mile 11, which is scandalous. It pissed me off because not like 3 weeks before, 61 for the half marathon felt easy. And all of a sudden on race day, I'm like, why am I going through in 64 and I'm knackered? I didn't even know if I could get to halfway. So these little decisions, I'm going to put myself in a situation that's uncomfortable, whether it helps recovery or it effing doesn't, I don't give a shit. It helps my brain go, I can do that. And so when I told my little brother to start having these cold showers, he could do it for 20 seconds. And then he's at 2 minutes. And I went, hey, Dylan, how did it make you feel? I was like, were you proud of yourself? He was like, and he's all smiling and giggling. He's like, yeah, I was proud of myself. And so there's various reasons to do it. Do it because you bloody can. It's not fun. It's not easy, but it gets fun. It's kind of like what I do is I literally last night, and I haven't done it for a couple of days. And this is what happens. Over a couple of days, you start to you're just not as callous to it anymore. And so I do my sauna. And when I'm in the sauna, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this cold shower because I'm roasting hot. And as I get closer to the bathroom and as I start to turn that cold shower on, I'm like, I don't know about this, Stephen. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I like this idea anymore. And then I just go 5, 4, 3, bang, and I'm already in it. And it's that simple. And it's just a mind over matter. And this is so key for people, right? On race day, you can build your fitness and build your fitness and build your fitness. And you can make your personal best for the marathon almost easy, right? And so if you get fitter and fitter and fitter and fitter and fitter, of course your personal best is going to be easy. But there's 2 ways to get better. You can get fitter and fitter and fitter, but you can also learn to push yourself more and more and more and more. And if you're improving both, the reason I was able to go and run 209 wasn't just because I had built the fitness to run 209. I had also built this ability to push myself way beyond what I was ever capable of pushing myself. And I didn't think that applied to marathon because I thought with the marathon, it's all about fuel and it's all about this sort of stuff. No, what I averaged in terms of a heart rate on the day of London Marathon was scandalous compared to what I would normally average. And so on the day of London Marathon, I was just able to push myself way harder than I'd ever been able to push before and hold it. So if you've done the training, now it doesn't work if you haven't done the training. If you've done the training, they allow you to get to the finish line, you'll get to the finish line. And that was because every Sunday we used to run anything from 16 to 22 miles, probably as hard as I ended up racing on race day. And with every Sunday that had went by, I just realized, hey, you were able to push yourself a bit harder today. Hey, a heart rate that felt hard work a week ago didn't feel that hard today. And so 2 things were happening. Fitness was going up, how hard I could push myself was going up, and for how long. But that all starts from those little details. The cold shower, the cold bath, amazing for recovery. Look it up, Google it. You can Google that all day, but don't ignore the fact that you're learning to teach your body not to be as comfortable and expose yourself to things that just aren't as fun, aren't as comfortable. And you just become callous to this idea that I don't need fun and comfortable. Mo Farah's coach, Gary Locke, Paula Radcliffe's husband, we're on the track, we're doing a session. I try to drop out where I'm following the bike. We're about 1,200 meters into a mile rep. And I say, Butchie, take over. You're going to have to take the bike. Gary turns around and goes, don't you dare. And I'm like, And then all of a sudden we're still running and we get to the end of the rep and he goes, Skull, like, what the F was that all about? And I was like, Gary, I'm a marathon runner. Like, this is track stuff. Like, I'm used to being comfortable in the marathon. And he says, you think Paula was comfortable when she ran the world record? And he says, that's your problem, Scully. You just always want to be comfortable. And I was like, dude, like that was a bit harsh. But he wasn't wrong. He was suggesting that to run these amazing times, you're not comfortable. It's not easy. And that's the problem. People move to the marathon sometimes because it's a little bit easier on the psychology. Not when you want to run 209, it's not. It's just hard. You can just keep going.
For sure, for sure. Do you know what? That's one of the things I've tried to change this block specifically, is to try and snap out of my comfort zone. I think, you know what? I love getting comfortable in a run and just zoning out. And I think a lot of the other runners out there do as well. So constantly I've thrown in, hard, like 5K races, basically 10K races throughout to stay sharp, just to snap out of my comfort zone. So sort of, a cold bath would sort of have that effect as well. It's kind of snapping you out of your comfort zone. Running is so much in the mind, that when you do sort of do those things, you're becoming mentally tougher as you're doing them as well. So yeah, definitely something I'll look to incorporate. I know it's an extra 10 minutes in the day, but it's 10 minutes worth finding, especially when the margins are so tight. So thanks for that. I've got a couple more questions. So the next one, Under Armour new super shoe. Have you trialed it? What are your thoughts on it? Very quickly, give us a bit of insight into it.
Look, this shoe is sick. I've had a real, Under Armour wouldn't even mind me saying this. Like I've had a real rough patch, I suppose, for probably 5-6 years with Under Armour and other shoe companies. Under Armour aren't alone, but these shoe companies have been trying to call it match, the best super shoes in the business. And it's been difficult. And it's been difficult because then you're trying to compete with people that perhaps are genuinely just faster than you because of, a super shoe. And that kind of was hard emotionally and mentally and things like this. And it started to become almost like Formula One, where, is the best athlete winning or is the best car winning, the best shoe winning. The new shoe, they kept sending me shoes. They'd send me the shoe and I'd be like, it's better. And then it's kind of like, it's kind of like the best of a bad bunch. I used to have things like this. I'd be thinking in my head, like, it's better than what we've currently got. And I'd be like looking at someone wearing the Nike shoe, like I know that's still a bit faster. This shoe is sick. So this shoe just won New York Marathon. Sharon, goes out there and wears it in New York Marathon. She wins. I haven't wore it yet in a marathon, but the first time I wore it doing track reps was just scandalous. I was just like, nice. And it's kind of like, it got to the point that one of the athletes that I train with would be like joking, like, I'm not allowed to wear those in training. And that was fun for me, because that was like, didn't ever think in a million years that someone would be joking in that way about like my Under Armour shoes, that's like fun about like Nike, like, hey, stop wearing those cheat shoes or stop this nonsense, and all of a sudden it was like, if I broke them out of the bag, like he'd be like, oh no, like you're not allowed to wear those today. And they've been putting in time, they've been putting in work. I think it comes down to money. What I sort of learned more and more, I guess, like everything in life, it came down to what were companies willing to invest in really good product. And Under Armour doubled down heavily and produced an absolutely fantastic shoe. So I'm really excited to race in that. And yeah, hopefully it'll, bring some good results.
Amazing. As an Under Armour athlete yourself, I'm super happy for you. I can see the excitement in your face. I know for every runner out there, there's nothing more motivational than new kit day, in specific new shoes day. And it feels like you've been waiting for these bad boys to come out. And we're honestly, expecting big things, Stephen.
I just wanted it to be fair. Like I didn't care for super shoes. I didn't ask for super shoes to be developed and stuff, but I just got frustrated that the sport wasn't fair anymore. That like you were gonna, that I wore super shoes. I didn't wear super shoes in Doha at the World Champs, and I came 43rd, and I was just wearing a pair of Under Armour shoes that they'd built, and they were they felt like a gym shoe, and all of a sudden I'm seeing pink shoes and green shoes and all all these fancy pants shoes, and then 3 weeks later I wore the Nike super shoe at Dublin Marathon and I came second, and I took so much criticism, like, oh, what shoe are you wearing? This is an Under Armour athlete wearing Nike. And I was like, what shoe did the top 20 in the race wear? I wore the same as the other 20 guys in the race. I just beat all of them except for one guy who was a Moroccan drug cheat. And I hated that the sport wasn't fair because it wasn't neutral anymore. It wasn't like who's the fittest. It was who was wearing, who had access to perhaps a better shoe. So I'm pumped that the sport is now moving back in a direction that I don't care about the times. I don't care what time you're running. I just care who's beating who. And now that it's back to neutral and fair, we get to see who's perhaps worked the hardest, who's the fittest on the day, who has the best race plan. It's back to being fair.
Amazing, amazing, cool. Yeah, I know a lot of the brands are super, super close and sort of all up there. So thanks so much for sharing that, and I'm excited to see what comes from it. Okay, Stephen. So I ran 2:20 twice last year. The first time was in Rotterdam, 2:20 and 59 seconds. I then managed to improve on it at Berlin Marathon, where Kipchoge set the world record. I went 2:20 and 8 seconds. I actually bumped into you at the airport before coming back to London, was on the same flight as you. You could tell it was sort of a bittersweet moment for me. I was buzzing with the PB, but I was guttily disappointed. I've basically trained my ass off again to get into shape. I believe that I'm in slightly better shape than I was at Berlin. But then again, a marathon's a marathon. It needs to be respected. I need to find 9 seconds this time. I want it more than ever. It's my fourth crack at it. I'm going to be on my limits. Please give me some words of wisdom or sort of how you think I'm going to find this one. I know when I spoke to you at the airport, I told you I went through halfway in 70:21 and I did negative splits and was, feeling all proud of myself. You kind of said you don't think that was the most efficient way to train, to run the race. I should have maybe gone a bit harder. So in this one, I'm planning to go a bit harder. I'm planning to go through halfway, sort of a minute quicker, 69:20-ish, and see what happens. But yeah, very keen to get your thoughts. Please help me crack this magical sub 2:20 for me.
Yeah, I think I think the advice that day after Berlin was almost, I read something on a message board forum years ago, and it was about why an athlete hadn't broke a world record in the 10K. And it was essentially the pace had gone off at, I think, 66s, for example. And the pace then slowed to 68 per lap for a couple of laps. And the coach was basically saying that even though that pace had slowed by a few seconds per lap, the athlete didn't gain anything back. It wasn't like a rest period. It wasn't like, okay, now that you've saved 10 seconds here for those 4 laps, well, now in the final few laps, you're going to be able to go 12 seconds faster because you got all your breath back, basically. And so that day that we spoke, it was clear that you had gone through in probably a pace slower than perhaps you'd have been capable of that day, because you said it felt very easy and you were just kind of running that pace to have some company and stuff like this. And so sometimes we go that little bit slower, but the energy expenditure is the same as what it would have been had we been going a touch faster. And so maybe had you gone through in 69:50, for example, in terms of how much fuel and energy you had to get to the finish line, it might have been the exact same. It might have been like psychologically a little bit harder to stay on that sort of like harder pace, but we're talking about energy right now. So you might have literally got to halfway with the exact same amount of energy that you burned by being like 30 seconds slower. It's also the marathon, even with a negative split, which is awesome, you still get tired. And so like your body still gets tired because it's not just about energy. It's not just about emotions. It's all about physical too. And so sometimes we sort of hang back and we think, oh my God, I'm going to be able to pick it up. And then we can't because our legs have physically got tired. And so I think that's a good strategy. I don't know that I'd be going, that seemed quite aggressive there to be going like a full minute quicker, like that 69:20. But I think you just shoot for a range. You just see the gun goes, you get out there, you get into sort of a rhythm. You see if you can find a group that kind of works around you. And you've just got a range. You've got like between 69:30 and 69:45, for example. It's just a loose, like, this is just where I need to be. And so this is where I want to be. The thing I'm going to say before you go on to like race plan is, don't underestimate how much joy and value this trying to break 2:20 has brought to your life. And you're like, I really want to crack it. It's so important. But imagine you cracked it 3 times ago. What would you have done for the last year and a half, 2 years? And so like, I think that's where people sometimes, like, if you go to this race and you crack it open, blah, 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 you're going to have a massive gap in your life the day that race is over. You're going to be like, oh shit, well, what do I do now? Like, do you go for 2:18? Do you go for 2:15? Do you go for 2:10? The goalposts have to move, but don't underestimate the value that this has brought to your life. Just pursuing this, just waking up, having that like drive to want to achieve something that, I'm not trying to hurt you here, but like, who the F cares if like you were at 2:20 or not? Like, I ran 2:09. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a time. But don't underestimate that value of having something really to go by. In terms of actually breaking it, you're going to have to be very it's going to get to a part of the race where seconds become so valuable. When I was out there training for Berlin myself, where we raced, I was using and I'm not sponsored, and this is not anything like that. I was using what was called the Stride foot pod, and I noticed that little slips in like psychological little slips. If I just lost a little bit of interest for a little bit, or I might have been doing a 25K hard run, a 30K hard run. And I found that there'd be periods within, like, let's say from 18K to 24K, where they track par, which is really useful. And if I was going to sit down with a coach after that session, he'd say to me, hey, look at what happened here from K18 to K24. He'd be like, you lost 12 seconds over that period. And it's because you let your par come down to, like, instead of maybe 360, you let it come down to 352. And that was just a psychological switching off. But like I said, you don't get anything back. It doesn't, you're still using the same like energy fuel. And so once you get through halfway, and then once you get upwards towards like 30K, don't do this. You can't yo-yo. You can't go like 324 for that K. Oh shit, I'm gonna have to go 316 now. That 316 will F you up. That's like you heavy revving. That's you like going brr, brr, and you're burning too much fuel. That 324 didn't save fuel, but that 316 will burn more fuel. And they talk about it in cycling. They talk about like your fuel and your like what you've got, your energy reserves. It's a big bag of rice. And every time you heavy rev a bit like that, you're just sticking a knife in that bag of rice, and it just drains faster. And so you really want to be just making sure that you're dialing into, it might not be bang on 320, because one might be a bit downhill, one might have a bit of a tailwind, but make sure that that sort of Stride do such a good job with it that it's just a very consistent par. But you basically were able to hold that par. So in the park, some of my Ks would be 306 at 360 par. The next one might be 312 at 360 par. But I knew I was sustaining a very stable sort of like effort level, you could say. And that's where once you get to like K26, K28, it's easy to just switch off a little bit. And you need to almost every K be like, bang, are you still awake? Come on, we're switched on here. Let's keep going. And that's going to save you those 8 seconds that you lost. Probably perhaps at some point came down to getting your drink, taking your jolly old time, just a little lapse in concentration. The other 8 seconds probably could have came from making sure you know the course and knowing where on the course you want to be. So knowing that at the next, like I did Houston Marathon, I didn't do this. I didn't look up the course. I had to run down the middle of these massive highways. And when I would get to the end of the highway, that's when I would know if we were going right or going left. I genuinely didn't know. And we would get all the way, in America, these highways are effing huge. And I'd get literally to like maybe 40 meters to go. And I'd be like, okay, we're going right. And I think how much time I would have saved if I was hugging the right side of the road. And when we got to the end of the street, I just nipped round to the right. And so that's a big one. A big one is to know your course, know which side of the road you want to be hugging. Don't just follow the crowd. Don't just follow what they're doing. They might be right, but what if they're wrong? And so you make sure, then you're literally diagonal across the highway, or you're maybe taking a corner too tight. Or there's just ways you can make up little bits of time in that regard. But I think the most important one is having those little, just whatever it is that snaps you back on. Maybe it is every time you pick up a drink. Maybe when you pick up a drink, you go, okay, Nick, let's back to work, back focus. And that doesn't mean you pick the pace up. It just means that you hold that good effort, because those little drops in concentration just cost you time. It's that simple.
100%. Yeah, so I'm pretty much going to, like we said, take it slightly more aggressive through halfway. I'm going to do my research on the Seville course. I know there's a lot of sort of sub 220 runners, which is quite nice. Hopefully I'll get into a pack. But the most important thing is to not lose concentration. And every time I might veer off losing concentration, I'll think about that, snap back on it. And I promise you, if I do crack 220, I know it's just a time at the end of the day. You know, no one goes to the gates of heaven and gets judged on their marathon time. But to me, I feel like it's more than a time. Having, you know, eat, breathe, slept, really believing that I could do it. So yeah, if I crack it, it'll be much more to me than just the time. But at the end of the day, it is just a time. And if I do then I'm definitely going to buy you a Guinness when you're back in London, when you're able to have a few. But yeah, on that note, what are you training for specifically now? Anything exciting coming up quickly that you'd like to share with us? And then I'll let you get on with training.
Yeah, so I guess for you, like, this is just a symbol of your hard work, really. Like, it's less about the 220, and it's just perhaps it's just showing yourself that you can really commit to something and go and achieve it, and that's fun. But myself personally, I took my time. I ran 209. It's probably like a year and a half ago now, maybe even 2 years. I don't know. It's a long time ago. To 2020, end of 2020. So not that long ago. But I felt like ever since a couple of things can happen in sport. You can get a little bit complacent, and you can sort of think like, oh, I'm really good. I ran 209. I'm amazing. And then you perhaps aren't hustling or grinding, you could say, as hard as maybe you were perhaps to run the 209. And so I kept trying to get back there. So I was kind of like, hey, let's try to get back to 209. Let's try to get back to 209. And sometimes you end up just chasing your tail, I suppose you could say. And that's roughly what felt like it happened. So last year I tried numerous times. Rotterdam's the closest I got. I think I got to 37K still on for 209, and then the wheels fell off a little bit. And then I stupidly tried again 2 weeks later, and then I stupidly tried again 3 weeks after that, and I was just in this bad headspace of, what are you doing? Like, what? You're like, here's me giving you advice, but like not listening to any of my own, and so yeah, like I took time off. I wasn't sure if I wanted to train for the Olympics or not, and then I eventually said, you know what, like I think you should. I started that new running school, and I didn't know if I was still running, just because like Under Armour paid me, and that was really important for me to build something new that could probably give me an out almost. It's like I wanted to be shown the door. If you don't want to run anymore, you don't have to. And that was enough to then know like whether I wanted to or not. And if it was just for money, it wasn't enough. You can't just run for money. You're not going to be good enough. You have to look at your passion just to break 220. I needed that same passion again, just to want to see, can you make an Olympics? It's easy to be like, hey, I want to make the Olympics, but it's hard. It's really hard. And I understood what it meant. And so I really took my time with it. And then it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago now that I was like, hey, you know what? Like I left Hawaii. I wasn't surfing anymore in Hawaii. I was like, let's go and see if I can do this. So right now it's just rebuilding fitness, getting the fitness back, rebuilding that sort of like robustness that you can actually handle the training. And I think that's what a lot of people don't sort of understand, that the goal you might have might be like here. The training that it would take to achieve that goal might be like here, and you might be down here. And so at the moment, I can't actually handle the training that would help me run, an Olympic qualifying time, or even get some points on the board to be moving in that direction. And so I'm rebuilding the body physically, psychologically, lots of gym stuff, lots of yoga stuff, the infrared saunas, the cold baths. I'm rebuilding everything for about a month to be in a position then to be able to train the way that I need to build that fitness that would lead to 208. And it's a process. And so at the minute, there's no real race plans. FYI, race planning is so important, because you level up. Once you pencil a race in, like you just level up. Your commitment levels up, your drive levels up, your why. You wake up in the morning, you're like, shit, that race. You've woke up for a month now, Seville. Like, and you're like on it. You're like so excited about it. Whereas like when you don't have a race, it's a bit like, it's cold out. Can I be bothered? Like, do I really want to do this? And so at some point over the next few weeks, like, of course, a race will be penciled in, just to get that drive and that sort of like, shit, in 3 weeks time, I have to stand on a start line. And it's a bit like being told in 3 weeks time in front of 1,000 people, you're going to have to stand on a set of scales. And if you've gained weight, that's kind of embarrassing. And if you've lost weight, it's like, whoa. And so like that race just like levels everything up. You start to hold yourself accountable to all the little things that you should be doing. So I will do that soon. I just don't know what that race will be. And then, yeah, I'll put a marathon in the calendar, probably for like September. If things are looking good, if things start to progress, then the next marathon I'll be trying to run 208. And so like that's aggressive, but but I know that there was some mistakes before London when I ran 209. I raced 3 weeks before. I think it made me tired. It hurt my body a little bit. And then just, if anyone remembers 2020, the loop course around London, it was the worst day in history. You know, it was like freezing cold. It was like the rain was harsh, the sleet was harsh, the wind was harsh. And, you know, I think I came, for the first time ever, I think I was within like 3 minutes of the leaders. And that tells you pretty much all you need to know, because if you're 3 minutes closer to the leaders at Berlin or 3 minutes behind the leaders at, you know, Valencia, you've had a good day, a really good day. And so London was worth more than it was. And so, yeah, I will wait and see if the fitness is looking like it. You know, you talked about lactate testing earlier. If in June, July, or August, for example, it's not looking like 208, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go stand on a start line and be like, oh, I'll take a swing. Running doesn't work like that. You earn your results. And so if it looks like it could exist, well, then we'll go take a swing in that regard. But if the numbers are saying you're miles away, and what I mean by that is just like the fitness test I told you earlier, if you're out there running 640 for a 2K and you're tired at the end of that 2K, you're not running 2 hours, 20 minutes in like a week or two's time. It's 2K. This is 42K. And so if you go out there and you do your 2K and the lactate's looking good and the heart rate's looking good and it's looking a little bit better than, let's say, before Rotterdam where you got the 37K, well, then you're likely in a position that you could probably do it. Before Rotterdam, I think at 6:05, my lactate was like 2.4 maybe. And so perhaps if it's now 2.0, well, yeah, at least something is saying. This is what I preach this in the school, but I say before a race, write down the race plan. What is it you want to achieve? And the next important question is, what makes me think I could achieve that? And if you write down, oh, I can achieve that because my friend Paul can do it. What? So it doesn't matter that your bloody friend Paul can do it. But if you write down, well, in this build up, I've trained better than this build up and I ran a half marathon PB. Well, yeah, it's looking likely that you could achieve something better than you've ever achieved before. But a lot of people don't think like that. They just think like, they don't even think about their commitment to train. So they just want a PB. But it's like, well, have you earned it? Have you put the work in? Have you held yourself accountable? Have you done all the little things? When you ran that last PB, you worked your ass off. And so what has changed? Have you done something more? Have you done it a bit smarter? And that's a really sort of cool thing to sort of think about. So I'll put the things in place. I went from, we talked about altitude. I used to spend 6 or 7 months at altitude a year. I reduced that to probably like 2 or 3. So I'm back spending a lot more time at altitude. It keeps me really focused. It keeps me away from the distractions. And yeah, hopefully I can build the fitness and get in the right headspace and go give 208 a crack, a bit like yourself. I'm not saying this in a bad way. I don't effing care if I do it or not. I'll just be so excited that I could have literally sat on a beach in Hawaii if I wanted. I could have swam, you know, with bloody sharks every day if I wanted. I could have surfed. I could have done all those fun things. And I'm choosing to be up a mountain to hustle and go try achieve something. And so no matter what happens, I always say to people, when you're stood on that start line, you've already won because you put yourself in that start line. It's that like, don't sit and watch or judge the people that are in the arena. Be in the arena, you know, at least they tried. And so I'm sort of happy that I'm back in that mindset of let's go give this a go and let's see. And it doesn't matter what happens. At least I, you know, give it a go. But I probably will do it because I just love it. And so yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. You know what? I can tell that you're in a good place because you're training, you're working hard towards something. I know you said you're looking for a September marathon, and I'm doing Berlin. So please come. Feel free to pull in if that one's on the cards. But yeah, honestly, if you went 209 high on that day in London on that course, it's probably equivalent, you know, to maybe a 207 on a good condition course. So you've definitely got it in you. And like you keep saying, and it's honestly what I appreciate most about you is your honesty, is that you hit those levels, you know, end of 2020, and you've been through quite a few tough patches since then, and
sure.
and running is so tough. So yeah, you know, the fact that you're grinding hard, working more hard than ever, when you do that 208, it'll be sweeter than ever. So yeah, we're all looking forward to seeing you hit those levels again, and we're backing you and can't wait to do it. And then yeah, on a more fun side, we said that we're going to do this sometime, you know, when you have a bit of downtime, you're back in Teddington. I'm going to come through to Bushy Park and we're going to do a sort of a handicap race. And
That's right.
losers have to down a beer or something like that. So yeah, give us some ideas in the comments, what you think this handicap race should look like, what the punishment or fine should be, whether it should be a shot, a beer, something like that. But yeah, we should definitely make that happen. Looking forward to that sometime.
I think if they knew me enough, the punishment should be like I have to eat an apple or like broccoli or cauliflower or something. Like I'd probably enjoy the beer. So like that probably wouldn't be a punishment for me. But like if they had like a big thing of Brussels sprouts, I'd be like, nah, I might motivate me to push a bit harder. But yeah, look, thanks a lot for today. I enjoyed that.
Cool. Awesome. Good to catch up with you. All the best for your training, and looking forward to what's to come. And I'll touch base after Seville. Thanks for your words of encouragement. Appreciate it. Cheers, champ.